Welcome back, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today, I wanted to chat about something that I absolutely love to do, cross-country road trips. I really enjoy a good cross-country road trip. I love seeing the country. I love just exploring new parts as I drive cross-country. We live in Texas. I have family in Michigan, so we often drive cross-country to go see them. Gives us more flexibility in when we come and when we go, as opposed to airline tickets where if you end up wanting to stay a few extra days, you can't always do that without a huge fine or fee, or maybe the flights are just not available. And if you're driving with a large group of people, sometimes it's honestly cheaper to drive, but do your math on that. Make sure you look up all the true costs, the hotel, the gas, all that stuff before you make that decision. But I've been doing this for many years now. We've lived out of state for over 10 years. And I wanted to pass along my tips I've learned about cross-country driving. A few things here right off the bat I wanted to start off with is planning. One of the biggest mistakes I think people make with cross-country trips is they just get in the car and go. I know I made that mistake when I was earlier on in my living out of state phase, I guess we'll call it. What I've learned is if you spend an hour and you do some planning, you look up your routes, you look up what's available in that area, it makes cross-country traveling so much easier, so much less stressful. Now, I use Google Maps often to do this. I miss the Microsoft map software. Microsoft used to have this great software. You could actually say, hey, I want to drive this many hours per day, leave at this time, arrive at this time, all kinds of things. Fortunately, I haven't found a good piece of software to replace Microsoft Maps. Do you know one? Do you know a software that allows you to do that, where you could say, hey, I want to leave at 9 a.m., I want to drive 8 hours, and then I want to stop, and it will say, hey, you'll stop roughly in this area and more. Leave me a comment, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. But doing that research, I can still get some ideas. I even go as far as try to roughly plan out where we'll make some stops. And the reason I do that is, for instance, if I know I want to drive about 3 hours and then have lunch, or 4 hours, or whatever it may be, it allows me to look around on Google Maps, find out what's available in that area. Maybe I can find a McDonald's with a play area for the kids to get out, run around in the play area as we have lunch. Maybe there's a nice park. I've done that before, where I've gone through a drive-through, got some food, gone to the park, let the kids run around, and we eat our food. So do your research. Have some ideas. I find it prevents me from just settling for whatever's in the area. Often, how many times have we done it like, oh man, we're hungry, we're not finding anything. We get off on the first stop, and then we go one more exit, and we realize, man, that was a much better exit, had better food options, better gas options, maybe a park to get out at. Doing some Google Map research for like an hour before the trip can significantly reduce those kinds of issues. I often prep a little cheat sheet of like, hey, in this town, there is this, 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 and maybe do it for 3 or 4 towns in the rough area where I think we're going to be, depending on how traffic and everything goes. So do your planning beforehand. And now, after you've done your rough planning, you've figured out your route, you've looked at some options for overnighting, you've looked at some options for maybe parks or McDonald's play areas along the way. Now I recommend planning in some packing. I also always do a little bit of packing planning, and I do things like some Windex and some paper towels I pack in the car so that I have the ability to clean up a mess. The worst thing to do is going to a gas station and buying that kind of stuff because your kid spilled their milk, or they spilled food all over the back seat, or wherever it may be. It's so much more expensive, and it's time consuming. It takes you away from the road. So pack some basic essentials. Nowadays, some hand sanitizer, some wipes. I always do some Windex, some paper towels. It's not a lot, just a few basic items. That means when I'm on the road, I'm not having to buy that, and saving money, making the trip that much more efficient. Next up is I always pack a bag of activities for kids. Now, it depends on your kid, how old they are. We use a backpack for each of our kids, and in the backpack we'll put activities, their tablet, headphones. Don't forget headphones. No one wants to listen to the kid's tablet for the entire way up to Michigan and back to Texas. And different items. I find putting in a backpack is kind of nice because I know some people use tubs or different things to do it. I love a backpack because they can take it into the hotel, they can take it into different activities, wherever they're going, and it's all zippered up there. It reduces the risk of someone falling out and vanishing. So pack a backpack, get some coloring books. You know your kid better than I do. pack a blanket, pack a pillow, basic items. Again, you don't want them to be like on board and then go down the road. Now, honestly, what we've kind of learned a little bit is not to let the kid have the backpack. I actually pack the backpack and then keep it up in the front by my wife and I, so that when the kid says they're bored, then we give them an item. And that prevents them from burning through everything in the first hour as they just quickly race through all the stuff in their backpack. So don't be afraid to stagger it. Say, hey, we have some stuff, but we're saving this for day 2 of a 2-day trip, like a trip up to Michigan. So keep that in mind. Also, speaking of tablets and phones, most modern cars now have Wi-Fi. I know Ford, GMs do, and it's about $20 to $25 a month, and there's no annual plan typically with this, at least at the time I'm recording this. I love that. When I know I'm going up to Michigan, to me, $20 is worth it to know my daughter can have her YouTube Kids, her video games, and more on her tablet. At home, we have tablet time rules and limits, but on the road, I'm willing to give them some extra tablet time, some extra video time, and more. And $20 for a month for a drive up and drive back, you think about that, that's $10 each way. To me, that's money well spent. Now, do your research. If your car doesn't have it, my wife and I have done in the past, is we've used Wi-Fi hotspot. Know your Wi-Fi plan for your cell phone, and more. What's the limitations? What's the data cap? I have found that my daughter's videos, if I go into the YouTube Kids app and I turn down the quality, really doesn't use a ton of data with it. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of options out there for internet that way. But do look into your vehicle. Honestly, Ford has this great deal. If you prepay, I think it gets always down to like $16 a month if you prepay for a couple years. Now, I use this for work also. So I'm in my car for work, have Wi-Fi, so it's worth it to me. Now, you make your own decision on that. But the Wi-Fi hotspot can be just, one-off, $20, $25 on off. Look at your car. Find the last few years, most newer models have it. Even some older models if it was a higher end one. So check that out. Lastly, for internet and videos and all that, download some offline videos. Whether that be YouTube Kid videos, go to iTunes if you're on iPads, or Amazon Prime Video. Download some movies, download some TV shows, because we've all been there where the internet just doesn't work. You're in a dead spot in the country, driving cross country, especially if you're heading west. I find those are more common, or just some technical issue happens. So have a backup plan. Lastly, with kids, when you're driving cross country, of course, you want them comfortable, but avoid the temptation to be like, we're going hardcore. Now, I've had to do that before. I've had situations where we just have to get there. There's a time-sensitive thing, and we're going to plow through. But I actually find that stopping every couple of hours, letting the kids run around in the park, letting the kids run around the McDonald's, is much more effective than plowing through. I know it may seem like, hey, we're wasting 20 minutes, maybe half an hour here at the park, or even an hour if you're really being generous. But I find that allows for more long-haul driving in a single day. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, it's 5 p.m., kids are bouncing off the wall, we have to stop. Instead, I may be able to get them to 8. So I stopped for an hour, 2 hours during the day, but I got 3 extra hours of driving. So I actually gain an hour of travel that way. You know your kids best with that kind of stuff. You know what works well for you. Play around with that. But I do find stopping regularly is helpful. You don't have to overdo it. You don't have to stop at every exit. You don't have to stop at every gas station. Keep that in mind. Now, I would recommend that you do stop more often than you think for gas. You never want to be in a position where you're stopping, you're running low on gas. You have to desperately stop. And again, you don't have the time to find that nice rest stop or truck station, or, who knows? You may find yourself in a stretch, especially if you're heading west, where gas stations can be hard to find. So I have a rule, when I'm getting down to about a quarter of a tank, that's when I start to stop and look. I find for me, that's a good, if I'm driving by myself, that's a good pacing marker too. And also it prevents me from finding myself in a position where I can't get gas, or maybe I can stop at a place that isn't as nice. So keep that in mind. Now, a few recaps here. Do your planning right off the bat. Spend an hour on your laptop, use Google Maps. If you can find a piece of software like Microsoft Maps, which allows you to say, I want to drive so many hours per day, all kinds of things, and it gives you suggested rest stop towns and more, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. But do your research. Look up possible rough areas to stop for the middle of the day for food, and maybe an area, if you have kids, to let them get out of the car. Look at options for hotels. I find typically pre-booking hotels can be cheaper than showing up on the day of. Not always, but if you find yourself in a position where you're passing through a town, I've had this happen, passing through a town, didn't know it, but there's a big festival happening. Most of the hotels were booked up. Now I'm paying significantly more, or I'm facing having to drive another hour to get away from this big festival that was happening in town. It was a hot air balloon festival, a huge event. It was quite beautiful the next morning, just hundreds of hot air balloons in the air. But all the hotels were booked up. I paid double what I was expected to pay for a hotel. If I had pre-booked, I would have avoided that kind of situation. So keep that in mind. So do your planning. Pack some essentials right off the bat. Pack some snacks, pack some bottled water, pack some paper towels and Windex. So much cheaper. I usually pack a cooler too, so keep that in mind. Pack activities for your kids, but don't necessarily just give them to them if they're young. Maybe if they're older, that's great. But don't be afraid to be like, hey, I'm going to keep some of these activities in reserve so that when we're on day 2 of a 2-day trip or a 3-day trip, if you're really going cross country, you got activities they haven't played with yet. Have their phones, have their tablets, bring extra chargers, all that fun stuff. Consider hotspot internet, maybe get that $20, $25 vehicle one. If you have like a GM or Ford, I know both of those have it. Look up your manufacturer's costs on that. I know if you prepay for like a year's advance, you get a discount, but unless you're like me and working on your car, there may not really be a need for a hotspot data plan there for your car. You can always use your phone to do that too. Just note the data cap, monitor it, have them turn down the quality of video with that. And have some fun. Take your time. Don't desperately rush it if you don't have to. That makes traveling so much easier, so much more fun when you can actually enjoy it. I often, you see a random historical thing. Maybe it's a roadside attraction. I love that kind of travel. I think if you take your time and do that, you can have a lot of fun. If you're really not in a rush, take the back roads. Highways get you somewhere fast and interstates do too, but the back roads have a lot of character and you can see a lot of fun things on them. So that's it for today. There are my tips for cross-country road trips with kids. Do you have a tip? Leave me a comment. If you're new here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. I will really appreciate it. Well, I hope everybody has a fantastic day. I'll see you real soon for more force a habit there, for more videos, reviews, tips, tricks, and more. Take care, everybody. Be safe.